Good afternoon, my fellow gamers. As all of you know, I am one of you. I am an avid enjoyer of gaming. It's been a huge part of my life for my entire life. It's in my veins, it's in my blood, it's embedded deep in my DNA. My body isn't powered by a heart, it's powered by another graphics card. It's a 4090 in here that's keeping this flesh mech suit online. I'm like Tony Stark, but nerdier. Anyway, I feel as though I'm the only one qualified to give you the State of Gaming address for 2024. Now, I've seen a lot of groaning and moaning, a lot of whining and complaining, a bunch of hoo-wee and hoo-ha and yee-haw about gaming industry is dying, it's this festering wound, it needs, needs a huge change, this and that. And while I agree with some of the sentiment, I actually think there are signs that the industry is going in a better direction overall. And I'll explain what I mean, but I want to start with something obvious. A lot of the $70 games we've been getting recently are just terrible. Not even worth playing, definitely not worth paying $70 for, such as Suicide Squad, and most recently, the first quadruple A game, according to Ubisoft, Skull and Bones. Suicide Squad has flopped, its player count has plummeted to under 1,000 players on Steam, and this is a live service game. This isn't just one of those like single player games where you expect a massive drop off. This is one of those things that's supposed to live on for a long time that gets people hooked like heroin. But the only thing that got them hooked on was the idea of better games, because that shit is miserable. So that game has been largely a failure, and now Skull and Bones seems to be following suit, which is Ubisoft's latest super stinker, which is a ship combat game without boarding. So it takes out the most fun part about being a pirate, the boarding, and reduces it to just being a cutscene. Quadruple A my ass. Unless all of those A's stand for different adjectives for how bad it is. Abominable, awful, abysmal, asinine. Like, it's so stupid to me how this game is out there right now in its beta, or whatever, for $70 when it doesn't even have boarding. Fucking Assassin's Creed Black Flag a decade ago has better ship combat and a lot more fun experience of being a pirate. It's crazy. I will not be playing Skull and Bones, I want to make it clear. I've only watched the streamers play it as well as the reviews on it, and I think it is in an inexcusably bad state. This is just blatant garbage that's being put out here for a quick payday and a big infusion of cash. I don't foresee them ever actually making this game good. I'll go ahead and put it on record here. We can check back in on this in 2 years if Skull and Bones happens to be the next biggest game on the planet. That's amazing. But I just don't see that happening, especially not with Ubisoft at the helm. It looks so painfully mediocre at best. The best compliment I've seen anyone give Skull and Bones is that it's mediocre. Can you imagine that? Paying $70 for mediocrity and doing it with a smile on your face? Because I can't. And you shouldn't accept it either. And this is where I get into the positive news. Where a lot of these games have increased their price and decreased their quality, the gap in the market has only widened for people hungry for actually good games. And that gap has been filled by smaller studios making smaller games. So like the $40 price tag games, for example. Those have been dominating 2024. Pal World breaking all of the records, basically. And now, most recently, Helldivers 2 having this amazing blow up. Over 400,000 concurrent players right now for Helldivers 2, and it's only growing by the day. And Helldivers 2 is an amazing game. It's full of passion and fun. I think it's one of the best co-op experiences I've had since Lethal Company. And speaking of Lethal Company, that's another example to what I'm saying. Last year we saw Lethal Company come out and absolutely spank the cheeks of the gaming industry. Had it bent over their knee disciplining them, showing them how it can be done if you just make a fun game. It's a cheap game made by a single developer, and it took the whole industry by storm for a while, and it's still popular to this day. So we're seeing these games pop up that aren't blockbusters by any means. They're not $100 million production, fucking 10 years in development hell. You know, these are games made by smaller teams that just deliver unique and fun experiences. And it shows how hungry gamers are for that kind of product. I've said for a while, the future of gaming is not in more AAA titles that get more and more expensive to produce and spend more and more time in development. It's these games, these like AA games coming out that are cheaper, a lower price point, and still offering many hours worth of fun to players. And we're seeing that right now, and you're seeing how they're being rewarded with this level of success. And I think that is a great sign for things to come. I'm hoping this will start to push developers away from just pumping out this formulaic by the numbers generic garbage like Suicide Squad, trying to capitalize off buzzword genres like live service nonsense, even though there's nothing in there that makes the game actually worth playing. Or most recently with Ubisoft just putting out the most bare bones pirate game ever, just to try and capitalize off that as well. I'm hoping companies will start to pay more attention to the success of these $40 games, these smaller games, and shift to that direction. Instead of spending 5 years developing a pile of mediocre garbage, why not spend a year or so developing something that's much smaller in scale, but tries to do something different that is just a fun game for maybe like 10, 15 hours even. You don't need a game that's going to keep a player hooked for like 80 hours plus by just delivering more escort missions like Suicide Squad aims to do. You can be satisfied by delivering like a $20 to $40 game that gives a player 15 hours worth of fun and they're done with it by the end. That's totally fine. You get your money's worth, and that makes me excited. Now, granted, the 3 examples I've given of these massive games that are smaller teams, smaller price, Pal World, Helldivers 2, Lethal Company, those games have tons and tons and tons of hours worth of content in them for you to enjoy, but I still think there's nothing wrong if the industry shifts to making smaller games that are only like 15 hours worth of entertainment, as long as it's a really unique experience and it's fun to play. I think you will get your money's worth, and the price point being at that 20 to 40 range. Like the $70 price tag should be reserved for the really meaningful titles, like a GTA 6 style thing. Obviously, that's the most extreme example. But when you see a $70 price tag for something, you're expecting the highest level of quality. But right now, when you see $70 or $60, it's you could be getting the worst game of the year. Fucking Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash is a $60 game right now. And that game is unforgivably awful. And I think it's good news that these AAA developers are not being rewarded for it. Like, again, Suicide Squad flopping, Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash, the most refunded game in history, I believe, according to one of the articles I read, which makes sense because anyone that bought that game actually got scammed. Actually, just completely full-blown blatant scam, so it makes sense everyone would be refunding it. Like, and Skull and Bones looking like it's going to be a flop. All of these big-budget productions that are being sold for $60 to $70 are not really turning a big profit for these companies. So I feel like they're going to start to pay a lot more attention to the smaller budget titles and the titles that they can actually do more with, because you won't need to invest years upon years of development time to it. You instead just need to invest into a good idea and a passionate team that can deliver something fun for a reasonable price. Like, it's that simple. And we're seeing this proven time and time again now, more often now than ever. So I actually like the direction the gaming industry is going right now, because we're rewarding some of the more unique titles, the more fun titles like the Helldivers. Like, it's nice to see that. Recently, the most popular games haven't been dominated by AAA blockbusters just bullying indie titles or anything. It's actually been the smaller studios, the smaller, cheaper games that are annihilating the big boys on the block. And I just think that's great. So I'm excited to see if this trend continues throughout 2024. It's still very early. We haven't seen the biggest heavy hitters of 2024 come out yet. So I guess that remains to be seen how exactly it's all going to shape up. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit because it put a smile on my face seeing the success of Helldivers today. Helldivers was really like the catalyst that made me want to talk about it, because I really love everything they've done with that game. And I love to see a game like that being rewarded in the way that it is. And I hope we see more things like it throughout the year, and just generally in the future of gaming. I really hope we can start getting away from all of these massive $100 million games that just are soulless, just cash grabs, and we get back to having more AA titles out there. I remember in the Xbox 360 era, early in the 360's lifespan, there were so many games coming out from so many different studios that just had all kinds of creative ideas that they were just throwing shit at the wall to see what stuck. And sometimes you had some hidden gems, some bangers. But nowadays, in the mainstream gaming space, these giant players only invest heavily into like 1 or 2 projects and put all of their eggs in that basket. And most of the time, it's not turning a profit anymore, because the games just aren't really hitting. Like, some of them are, of course, obviously. But there's been so many flops recently that you just keep hearing about. It's not sustainable. You can't have every game take 6 years in development and cost 9 figures to develop. It's not going to work long term. So I really think the future is back into that $20 to $40 price range on games, smaller in scale, smaller in scope and development time, and you produce some interesting shit. So I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. That's kind of where I think everything is in the gaming industry right now, and I'm pretty optimistic for the future of it. That's really about it. So yeah. I may not be at a fine dining establishment right now, but I'm still serving up a large glass of wine. I just have to complain and rant about something in this video that's just been grinding my gears for quite some time now, because the problem still exists, and it's not getting any better in the industry. So stand back, you're about to enter the splash zone. I'm about to get real passionate, which means I'm gonna start spitting. How can it possibly be that 2023 years after the death of Christ, we are still releasing games with a dogshit PC port? How are we not learning from past mistakes, from previous sins of our fathers, from the countless other awful PC ports that have ruined games? Why is this still not only a problem, but actually getting worse? It makes no sense. This is actually a SpongeBob, how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man moment. It'll be no surprise what prompted this video. It was the Star Wars Jedi Survivor game. I'm sure all of you have read the headlines and seen the reviews about how awful the performance is on pretty much every platform, but most notably PC. Unforgivably bad on PC for most people. Now, I'm currently playing it on PC, and not only was installing it an unbelievable headache because we've entered the age where no one gives a fuck about actual optimization at all. So it was a 128 gigabyte download, and then after that was finished, I got fucking slapped, double-fisted with the 129 gigabytes of unpacking that needed to come after the 128 gigabyte download. For that fucking file size, I felt like I was downloading another human being onto my computer. Shit had me installing an entire new solar system onto my SSD. I feel bad for anyone, like my heart is breaking for anyone that doesn't have like top-of-the-line internet, because this probably still isn't even done downloading for you on PC right now. You probably still have another week or two on that, baby. You gotta let that shit cook, because it is rough. They don't bother compressing things anymore, I guess, and they just let it take up as much space as possible, as if it's some kind of like achievement if they take up like fucking 140 gigabytes or whatever. It's ridiculous. But that's not even the big point here. So on PC and pretty much everywhere else, you will probably not be getting 60 frames per second. And I know, oh, entitled gamers wanting 60 frames, oh, that's so goofy. Well, bah humbug to you as well, Ebenezer Scrooge. If you're paying $70, this is a $70 game, if you're paying $70 and not even getting the bare minimum of performance, then you are a cuck if you're trying to defend that. When you're paying that kind of money, you should be getting high quality product for it. But there is not a single report I have read from anyone that is able to maintain a consistent 60 frames per second with this title, no matter what you're running. You could be running the state-of-the-art quantum computational technology, absolute, $100,000 hardware, 4090s out the fucking wazoo, and you will still not be getting 60 frames per second in this game consistently. Mudahar recently made a video going over it. I'm sure you've all seen all the articles. Most people are getting between 40 and 50 FPS, no matter what they're running. And for a lot of people's machines, seeing 40 FPS is like finding a shiny Pokemon. Getting 40 FPS for some people's machines is a fucking accomplishment in and of itself, deserving of a trophy and a pat on the ass. It is ridiculous. A lot of people are getting 30 FPS. It's just in a terrible state. And one other thing that I should mention with Jedi Survivor, though it doesn't apply to every bad PC port, but it certainly does for this game, is that it uses Denuvo DRM. I'm sure you've all at least heard of Denuvo before. It's become the boogeyman of DRM because it has been shown to make game performance worse. To what extent and exactly how big of an effect it has on performance is always a bit of a toss-up and a case-by-case basis on the game itself, but it does have a proven negative effect on the performance of a game. The reason companies use Denuvo is because they're all so fearful of piracy that they take the nuclear option and choose Denuvo to try and protect it, though even in those cases the games still end up getting cracked and people still pirate them. It just takes them a little longer, which I guess for the company execs might be worth it, but you sacrifice the actual performance of your game for your paying customers in order to give yourself like an extra week of no piracy. But what ends up happening, and I'm getting a little sidetracked here because this is a little off the path that I wanted to talk about with just bad PC ports in general, but Denuvo in particular, what ends up happening is when a game has this and a normal person buys the game, like me, I buy the game, I'm subject to that Denuvo DRM, and that makes my game's performance worse, whereas the people who pirate the game that are taking a week before it comes out, or 2 weeks, whatever, they now get that game without Denuvo, thus their performance is actually better than the paying customers. That's ridiculous. That's so fucking ass backwards, it's laughable. It's almost poetic. In their delusional attempts to combat piracy, they end up encouraging it by offering pirates a better product if you pirate the game than paying customers. It's so wild. And in Jedi Survivor's case, it's even more lunacy because the Denuvo, the DRM, all of it is so extreme that if you try and load this game on what it deems as too many computers, it'll shut you out from even playing the game. Look at this screenshot here. There have been players reporting that because of Denuvo, they've been locked out of the game because it thinks that they're playing it on multiple computers. Thus, it's like, you know, combating piracy. When that's not even what's happening. It's out of control. It's totally out of control. But back to just general PC ports being terrible and like a trend of this going on, it's still unforgivable to even be getting 40 and 50 FPS in this day and age and paying full price for the game, which has become kind of the trend in the industry, which is so weird, and why I'm talking about it, because this isn't like some rare exception. This isn't some unicorn where like, oh man, somehow they fucked up a PC port. How could they have done that? No, this is like super normal. Right now, we live in the time period where it's push it out and we'll fix it later. Just ship it and we'll fix it somewhere down the line and that should be fine. Which is trash. That's horrible business practice. And what's even sadder is the amount of brainwashed drone zombies that defend this and actually attack people that call it out, saying that they're just entitled gamers. How can you be demanding this from developers to get it right off rip, to get it perfect when they ship it? This is silly. You're being a bunch of goobers. Obviously they're going to fix this game at some point. They treat it like it's a fucking NFT investment or something, like, oh, it's gonna be great at some point. And you know, yeah, maybe sometimes it does get fixed, most notably Callisto Protocol. That shipped in the worst state I've ever seen for a PC port. It was borderline unplayable with how fucking bad that was, but they fixed it shortly thereafter. But I don't think that's really excusable. I'm glad they did the right thing and made it work, made it functional, but it shouldn't have ever shipped that way. It's not like they didn't know these problems existed. It's not like this all of a sudden came out of nowhere, like, oh my god, there was a fucking ghost in the machine and it corrupted everything right when it launched. No, they would have been aware of it, but they still decided to ship it anyway in that state just to meet the deadline. I'm glad it got fixed, but it doesn't change any of the damage done to the initial buyers here, and it ruined the reputation of that game forever, completely fucking tarnished it, wiped their ass with it. And right now that's happening with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. A game, when it launches, should be in a good state. Bugs, of course, are always going to be there. I never really hold bugs against a company too harsh unless they're obviously game-breaking and like maybe there's an incredible amount of them. But I understand bugs are always going to be present. There are just some things that you can't always get in QA testing. But just performance problems like never getting 60 FPS, constant stuttering, those kind of things, you know they're there when the game's about to ship. Now, like I said, I want to make this clear. I'm currently playing through Jedi Survivor. I am not experiencing most of the problems that the majority of PC users are with the title. I'm not getting a crazy amount of stuttering. It's definitely there. It is prevalent, but it's not like game ruining or anything like that. And I know I'm not getting 60 FPS. I think I'm more in that 45, 50 FPS ballpark, but I don't really feel like putting up the FPS counter to double check. I just know it's not 60. It's pretty clear. And I'm okay with that playing throughout the game, but I'm not happy that I was charged $70 for a game that can't even reach like the absolute baseline of performance in 2023. I'm enjoying the game because I think the gameplay is good and I'm enjoying the story so far, but I am extremely disappointed in the performance of it. I would obviously like if this game was hitting 60, it would be better. But I'm not having the worst time with it because I've been lucky enough to not experience most of what other PC players are. So I just wanted to get that out there real quick. But anyway, Jedi Survivor developers, they put out a statement today on Twitter, and I want to kind of go over that as well real quick. We are aware Star Wars Jedi Survivor isn't performing to our standards for a percentage of our PC players, in particular those with high-end machines or certain specific configurations. Within the first sentence here, just a full poopy diaper on display. It's not a percentage of PC players, it's all of them, whether it's high-end machine or not. Also, it's not performing up to the standards that you'd expect in 2023 for consoles either. Console performance isn't amazing, it's just PC performance is worse. So that's where most of the conversation has been focused, is on PC. But the entire game itself is so fucking poorly optimized and not great performance. While there's no single comprehensive solution for PC performance, the team has been working on these fixes we believe will improve performance across a spectrum of configurations. We're committed to fixing these issues as soon as possible, but each patch requires significant testing to ensure we don't introduce new problems. Thanks for understanding and apologies to any of our players experiencing these issues. We will continue to monitor performance across all platforms and share update timing as soon as it is available. Star Wars Jedi Team. So this is baloney. We're looking at an actual load of horseradish here. These aren't problems that were brand new once the game shipped. They would have been aware of these. But because of the higher-ups at the company, I imagine suffocating, fucking strangling them like Bart Simpson's neck, making sure that they're going to be on time for the deadline, they forced the game to come out as scheduled, as slated, which didn't give them the optimal time to refine the performance problems. Thus, now they're going to have to play catch-up and be eating shit publicly for this in the meantime. And even after they fix it, they will still eat shit for releasing a game that was poorly optimized with terrible performance. It's just a lose-lose. Like, the only benefit here is to the higher-ups at their bottom line, like, oh, look at all these day one sales. But then there's going to be a drastic drop-off because of all the negative press, because everyone's talking about how fucking awful the game is because of the performance. No one's talking about the game being good right now, and the game is good. I'm having a great time with it. The gameplay is fucking fantastic. Like, I actually think I'm enjoying the gameplay more than in Fallen Order. But no one's talking about that because everyone's focused on how awful the game performs. That takes precedent over a good game. If you release a game that is shittily made, right, if it doesn't run well, that's all people are going to focus on. For obvious reason. I'll just never understand this like speed run to get games out no matter the cost. Come hell or high water, this game's going out there even if we left in all kinds of game-breaking problems. Who gives a fuck as long as it's out there in the wild? That's what matters. It's dumb. You would stand to gain far more from a good PC port and a well-optimized game. I can't wrap my head around it. I understand that there's so much bureaucracy to it now that maybe it's just totally out of the hands of the developers and really just in the hands of the suits that force it. So there's only so much they can do. I really do think that's probably a large part of it. It's not like the developers want to release a game that they know is in a bad state because they're the ones that catch the most flack for it. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I'm sure they don't like it either. It's just such a shame that this keeps happening with good games. It is very rare to have a good PC port these days, which is crazy to me. I feel like we should have learned from the past, where when you have a good PC port, everybody wins. You get more customers, it has a long life now on the PC as well. It just, everyone wins when you make a good PC port to a game. I just don't understand why it continues to be an issue. Fucking Last of Us, the PC port they released, is a joke. Like, it just continues to happen. Why? I really don't understand why there is not any amount of care given to these PC performances for their games, when there is really only upsides to it. I just wanted to rant about this because obviously I play most of my games on PC. I do still console game occasionally, but it's pretty rare. Almost everything now I do is on PC. So it just always hurts to have such a shitty experience for these good games because they didn't bother to put any amount of polish on the PC port. So I just wanted to rant about that, and that's about it. See ya. Do you even realize how lucky you are to be alive right now? To exist at the same time as Concord. You are alive at a time that people will talk about for centuries to come. You get to witness the biggest failure in gaming. Not only the biggest failure in gaming, but undoubtedly one of the biggest failures in all of entertainment. PlayStation just announced that they're already shutting down Concord in 3 days from now. That's the doomsday for all 9 people still inhabiting that barren wasteland. The game didn't even survive 2 full weeks. I probably could have lasted longer on a deserted island with only fucking coconuts to satiate me. This game just barely squeaked over a week of life. And life is a term I'm using very loosely because this game was never alive to begin with. It was dead on arrival. 660 all-time peak, and even right now with this news that it's going to be shutting down, not even those 660 people bothered to flock to it to get like one last ride in there, one little ooh-rah before it sails off into the sunset. I imagine most of those players probably already refunded the game because it was a $40 game that was a watered-down, worse version of all of its free counterparts that it was trying to suckle from the teats of. It was an embarrassing flop that everyone with eyes saw coming from a mile away, except for Sony, it seems. 8 years in development, millions upon millions of dollars in the shitter here, only for the game to exist for barely over a week. A loaf of bread lasts longer than Concord did, and they're pulling the plug on it already. It should have never even released in the first place. This was a complete waste of 8 years of time and money. It is rough. This is a harder flop than my cock under your mother's chin. I do not, and I said this last time, I do not know who this game was ever made for, because the audience it tries to appeal to was never going to switch to this game because it's already $40. You've already lost that battle, because all of the other games in that genre are free and better. So it was a surprise to no one that when this game dropped, its player count sucked shit through a crazy straw. Nobody was asking for this. There wasn't a demand for it. There was no one lining up to purchase this. This was something nobody wanted, like a lump of coal for Christmas. It really is not a shocker that this game never breached 700 players. Its peak was 660. That is pathetic. That is laughable. If you go into like Steam dumpster diving, you can just throw a fucking dart at your computer monitor and whatever game it lands on that you've never heard of, like fucking Glorbus's Hemorrhoid Adventure, that probably had more than 660 players at some point. It is hard to find a game that had this little hype around it. Like, playing Concord was like going into an empty Burger King. This whole thing was just sad. And now they're already pulling the plug on it less than 2 weeks after it's been out. I also love the way they start their statement, Concord fans, as if any of those exist. You'd be more likely to find aliens than Concord fans. We've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. You could have just sent all of them a DM. Like, there's not many of them. You could have easily reached them directly. Your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. I don't know where that community is, I'm going to be honest. The only passion I see in regards to Concord is people passionately shitting on it and laughing at it. Because it is a spectacle how badly this game flopped. However, while the many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6, 2024, and explore options including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we'll begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchase the game for PS5 from the PlayStation Store or PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method. It is exceptionally rare to see something fail to this degree. Millions upon millions of dollars invested in this project over the course of 8 years with a big team of people working on it. And they get like 30 grand in sales from PC. Relative to what they spent on this project, that $30,000 return is incomprehensibly tiny. They released a wet fart that will be talked about in economics courses, I think, for eons to come. To put that in perspective, that $30,000 they made on PC sales for Concord most likely don't even cover a year's worth of electricity bills for the office building that their employees work out of. I decided to look at a couple of numbers out of curiosity. So Firewalk has roughly 150 employees based on what I can find, and I can't find any information on the building they work out of, but let's just assume that they're working out of a mid-sized office building that's usually used for about 100 employees, and according to these numbers here, a business will spend about $1.44 per square foot on electricity and 30 cents per square foot on natural gas. So an annual cost for a mid-sized office building of 20,000 square feet, which is used for about 100 employees, will come out to $34.8K. This was developed for 8 years, and what they made on PC doesn't even cover 1 year's worth of just electricity and energy costs. Pff, what a fucking historic blunder. Now, I imagine a lot of the developers at Firewalk work remote, but even still, I imagine they have some kind of headquarters somewhere, and that building would not have even been able to keep the lights on with the $30,000 that this game made. So it never even came close to breaking a profit. It wasn't even in the same universe as the word profit. I can't think of anything else that has ever flopped this hard. This is just crazy. It's already getting the plug pulled after just 10 days. So, yeah, I am beyond surprised because I thought they'd at least ride this as much as they could. Like, trying to update the game, like desperately trying to get some players to buy into it. Like, I thought this would go at least 6 months, like a full season or something of the game, but it didn't even make it like a full 2 weeks. It blows my mind. Like, I'm not surprised by how poorly it performed. I am surprised it performed this poorly, because even, like, no matter how bad a AAA game is, people will mindlessly buy it. Except when it comes to Concord. That is how little interest there was in a game like this. So that's going to be a big lesson for the gaming industry, I think. Or at least it should be. It probably won't. They'll probably make like a Concord 2 in a year or so, because they most likely haven't learned anything valuable from this. But speaking of value, if you want something actually valuable, pick up Godslap. Issue 6 just dropped. That's right, we're moving into the new arc of Godslap, and issue 6 is out right now. Pick up a copy at badegg.co, there's a link in the description. And also, if you're thirsty, Goof Juice is always available, baby. Gamersupps.gg/moist. Link also in the description. Best flavor of any beverage ever. You can sip on some Goof Juice while reading your Godslap and looking as Concord it gets taken off of life support. Now, what I do think should happen as a result of this public embarrassment that was Concord, the people that came up with the idea of making a hero shooter that's just the most derivative, generic, formulaic garbage, they are the ones that need to be held responsible the most. Those are the ones that should be fired. But we've seen time and time again that is never the case. When you reach a upper echelon position in an industry, you can only fail upwards. No matter how much money you lose, no matter how many times you stumble, fall, and cost the company greatly, you are always safe and only ever fail positively. Everyone underneath you gets punished. Like, we saw this with John Risatiello at Unity. Like, we just actually saw it with Suicide Squad. I just read the other day about how they're laying off a ton of, like, QA testers, even though it's not like the QA testers were responsible for Suicide Squad being a dog shit game. The people that made it a live service game and all of the other terrible ideas, it's their fault, not the QA testers that were just making sure the game fucking functioned, yet they're the ones that are being punished. They're the ones that are getting spanked for it. It makes no sense. So in Concord's case, it shouldn't be just like the people that coded the game, like, they had a project they were assigned to work on, they did their job. The game runs, like, the game is functional, it's a serviceable game, it's just not a good game, and it's a game nobody wanted. That is the problem of the people that brainstormed this, greenlight this, and then made the team work on it. So whoever came up with those ideas and pushed all this forward, those are the ones that are responsible for the tragedy that is Concord. It should have never existed in the first place. But yeah, anyway, RIP to Concord. That's about it. See ya. You doubted me. I bet you thought I didn't have it in me. Inside Charles, there is no dog. He can't stand on business. He can hardly stand at all. At 5'6", it looks like he's always sitting down. Well, Goof Troop, I'm happy to report that I've found my resolve. Like an anime character, I'm finally saying enough is enough and I'm standing up for something. And it's not buying Dragon's Dogma 2 again. If you watched the video I posted earlier, you'll know I literally cannot play Dragon's Dogma 2 on PC. It is a PC port that is non-functional for a lot of players, and I am in that group that cannot get it to run for any longer than 5 to 10 minutes at a time before crashing. I actually can't play it. Which is more devastating than finding out your father's cheated on your mother or something. Like, this hurts on a deep level for me. This is one of those very few games where I've had an extreme level of hype and optimism for it, only to be disappointed to this degree. As I said, I loved the first Dragon's Dogma when it came out over a decade ago, so this is a game I couldn't wait to sink my teeth into, but I actually can't, through no fault of my own. I've tried everything and it will not work. And I know if I buy this game for console, it will function. I'll be able to play it and I'll probably enjoy it because everything about it seems exactly what I would want from the sequel to Dragon's Dogma. But I just don't want to do that anymore. This is unacceptable what they've pulled with this PC port here. This just shouldn't be allowed to be sold. Even among the people that are having problems with the game, my issue is kind of still a shiny Pokemon in terms of rarity where it just constantly crashes. There's only a handful of us with that problem, but everyone who's playing it on PC for the most part is experiencing performance-related issues as well as a myriad of other problems. Also, it launched with like a really greedy microtransaction store. Of course, nothing in there is like a necessity to gameplay, but the fact that a single-player game is still so predatory with its microtransactions is a terrible look and a terrible direction for the games industry as a whole, and it's only been getting worse over the years. So, in a nutshell, I just am tired of playing the trained animal that the video games industry thinks I am, where I just sit here clapping my hands with a smile on my face as I consume the shit they constantly feed me. Like, these executives are legitimately just dropping trow and human centipeding gamers, knowing full well it doesn't matter. They'll still keep buying the products no matter what they do. In the past, when I was a weaker man, a coward, I would have normally just refunded this on Steam and bought it on console, played it, made a moist meter on it, and made note that the PC port is fucking trash. It's abysmal. But I still would have bought it again and played through it so I could review it. I'm not doing that in this case. Like, I can't. I'm done participating in this. This is just an absolute circus. This is a clown show from AAA gaming space. There are so many broken, downright broken PC launches for these titles now. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely stupid. So probably for the first time ever in my life, I'm just saying enough is enough. I'm not going to bother just buying it again and playing it through on console so I can review it and enjoy the game. Like, if you're going to release a game on a platform, it should work on that platform. Like, that's not asking a whole lot. That should be the bare minimum, right? That it should be in an acceptable state. I understand performance issues. A lot of these games are massive, and there's so much variety to, like, different PC builds and everything. I get that it makes it hard to fully optimize a game to work on every piece of hardware. There's going to be stutters. There's going to be hiccups. These games are massive, so that's to be expected. I think that's totally excusable. I do understand that. But what's not excusable is the state Dragon's Dogma 2 is in, where it's universal, where pretty much everyone on PC is having these problems. And then in certain cases like mine and quite a few others, it just doesn't function entirely. That to me sounds like there was no real attempt at optimizing in the first place, that it was just pushed out as quickly as possible to meet production deadlines, and it feels like, with the microtransactions here, the primary goal was to drive as many people to spend as much money as possible as quickly as possible. It's a $70 game, 70 bones here, that's a lot of clams, and then there's still a ton of microtransactions that they're trying to kind of shove you towards as well. Again, they're not a necessity or anything, but they are there and they're pretty appealing to a lot of players, I imagine, and it's a fucking single-player game. Why are they there to begin with? I don't like the argument of, oh, it's there just for people who want to spend money to progress faster. What kind of cuck wants that? It's a single-player game. Why are you rushing to get to the end game to begin with? It's not like an MMO. There's no reason to rush through the game. You bought a chunky single-player game. Why are you going to be spending extra money just to get through it faster? Is it part of your chores or something? Like, I don't get it. I mean, I'd maybe understand it from the perspective of, like, an IGN reviewer or something who wants to put in the bare minimum to review it, so they'd, like, spend a lot of money to get through it quicker. I guess then that would make sense, albeit that'd be kind of scummy. Like, I just don't see why anyone would defend having micros in a single-player game like this. And I've seen all of the counterpoints about, well, it was in Resident Evil 4 and all of that. I mean, it's not like I was defending it there either. It's not like I think that's good in there either. Like, I still think it's unnecessary and silly. It just seems like as this continues to become more and more prevalent, we're going to see them start to subtly change gameplay to be more inconvenient so it drives more people to get the microtransactions to speed it up a bit. I don't think that's necessarily happening with Dragon's Dogma 2 from everything I read. I don't think the microtransactions have had like an effect on the gameplay and the design philosophy around it, but I can absolutely see a future where if this is more commonplace and more accepted, they would absolutely make it more tedious to do it legitimately in-game, to like grind RC or grind currency. So that way players would be incentivized to just spend the money to skip that part because it's not fun. I could definitely see that happening. Now again, I don't think it's happening in this game, but I could see that being the case down the line. And it sucks. That's not good at all. And I don't think there's any arguments for defending this ridiculous idea of paying $70 and only getting one fucking save. What? And like everything's stored server side for like your character design and everything apparently, so like no matter what, you can't edit your appearance unless you pay for it or if you grind enough currency to do it in-game. Like, come on, it's a single-player game. It's a single-player fucking game. Why are you storing that server side? Just let us have fun. It's so stupid. Just everything about the launch of Dragon's Dogma 2 here just seems so anti-consumer. Plus, it's fucking riddled with de novo, which is a scourge in the gaming industry. It's DRM that has a well-documented history of making games function worse. Which is why, and I've said this so many times recently, piracy is a really appealing option for games like this, because I bet if I downloaded this game, if this game gets cracked in the next month or so, if I pirated this game, it would probably work for me on PC, no problem, buttery smooth, because it wouldn't have de novo weighing it down, which is a plague. Like, I would probably get a better experience, I'd probably be able to actually play the game if I fucking pirated it. Like, the official release of this is just so poorly optimized. Like, you would absolutely, most likely, have a better experience through just torrenting this shit. This whole launch of Dragon's Dogma 2 is just so frustrating to me. It's also one of the very few times I can recall that a game that I was super excited for turned out like this. This has happened a lot in the modern gaming space, but I've never really had it happen to a game that I wasn't expecting it to. Cyberpunk, there was a lot of telltale signs that this was probably going to be a rough launch. Like, the Jedi Survivor. Also, quite a few red flags that there was probably going to be launch problems. All of those I expected. I kind of knew it was coming. This, completely out of the blue. When I started stream last night, I was in extremely high spirits. I was like, oh, I can't believe this game has bad reviews on Steam. It's probably just people review bombing it or complaining about, like, really trivial things. It's probably not actually in a bad state. I thought maybe there was just something that ruffled some feathers, like maybe a couple microtransactions, which is, of course, not a good look, but probably not reason enough to shit on the game and give it, like, a 1 star. But then I tried playing it, and it doesn't fucking work. So it totally warrants all of the terrible reviews. This isn't a game that's necessarily been review bombed. There's just tons of players that have had a horrible experience with it, like me. I can't even have an experience with it. I'm so over this marketing philosophy of release now, fix later. It sucks. It super sucks. Just release the complete product and have it work off rip. It just shouldn't be that rare to see. It shouldn't be like an uncommon thing in the industry. Jiminy Christmas, Jeepers Creepers. So yeah, I just had to rant about this and explain that I will not be playing Dragon's Dogma 2 anytime soon. I'll maybe play it down the line if they ever manage to fix the PC port. I'll give it a whirl, but I'm not going to just buy it on console so I can play it now. I'll just play it eventually when it actually functions on PC. So I just wanted to kind of dive into this a little bit deeper. That's really about it. So yeah. Life is full of surprises. You might walk down the street and find a $20 bill. You might walk down the street and get hit by lightning. There is always things that you can never really expect. Except for what I'm about to talk about today. Firewalk Studios, the developer behind Concord, is officially shut down. This also shuts down the rumor, that conspiracy that was starting to bubble up about Concord getting a second wind because they were getting Steam updates in the back end. There were daily updates to Concord that you could see in the logs, even though the game had been shut down for a while. So there was speculation from gamers that they might be working on it to try and breathe some new life into it, and maybe it'd be like a Morbius situation where they bring it back only for it to catastrophically fail again. Clearly that wasn't the case. They weren't exactly cooking up the new Manhattan Project behind the scenes for Concord's revival. I still don't know what they were doing on the back end. I think it was probably like when you have a flood and you go in and take pictures of the damage for the sake of insurance. That's probably what they were doing, because this was such a financial disaster, the likes of which humanity has never seen before. So they were probably doing something like taking the code in order to like lock it up in some kind of tomb, never to be touched again because of how awful it was. I have no clue. But clearly it wasn't for the sake of bringing the game back, because it's never coming back. It is officially dead in the dirt, never to see the light of day again, and now the developer behind it has been shut down. I think everyone knew this day was coming because of how much money Concord lost. A historic flop. Like, this flop doesn't even do it justice. There doesn't exist a word in the human language that can describe just how horribly this game fumbled. It is unbelievable. Just like me participating in a Try Not to Come challenge while listening to a Sleep Token song, it failed in a big way. So I'm pretty sure most people knew Firewalk Studios was going to get chopped here, and now the day has come. They did, but Firewalk wasn't buried alone. In fact, they got company into the great beyond. Another studio Sony announced they're shutting down is Neon Koi, which is a studio I've never heard of. It sounds like a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh card, but apparently it was a mobile game developer that was working on an unannounced AAA live service action game. My guess is the failure of Concord put the fear of God in Sony that they took a hard look at some other work that was going on with studios under their blanket, and they said, this one might not be up to snuff, this might not be the special sauce, what the doctor ordered, so we're just going to pull the plug. That's what it seems to me. I don't know the studio or their previous work, so who's really to say? All I do know is that they did make a statement on why they shut down Firewalk, and it's pretty much exactly what you expect. Regarding Firewalk, as announced in early September, certain aspects of Concord were exceptional, but others did not land with enough players, and as a result, we took the game offline. Yeah, it's just gobbledygook right there. There's nothing exceptional about Concord. It was as generic as it gets, and somehow it just did the formula worse than everything else in the genre, and yet they had the gall to charge $40 for it. There wasn't anything exceptional at any point in that game. If they truly believe that, then they're delusional, and I do think they really believe that because they invested so heavily in Concord. They went hog wild, dumping doubloons into it for no reason. SpongeBob must have snuck into the headquarters with the Orb of Confusion because these people were fucking lost when they made this decision to go this crazy with Concord. Sony acquired Firewalk in April of 2023 and shut them down in October of 2024. A fucking piece of provolone cheese lasts longer in your refrigerator than Firewalk did under Sony's umbrella. I don't know what they saw in the first place that made them want to buy this studio. Like, I don't know. I really, truly don't understand what they saw with Concord. I don't know. They must have been living in a different dimension, an alternate timeline that fucking crossed over like Berenstein versus Berenstain and sandwiched it together. Because what they saw with Concord is not what any sane human being on the planet saw. So I don't understand why this ever even happened in the first place. This was the most preventable financial disaster of all time. We have spent considerable time these past few months exploring all our options. After much thought, we have determined the best path forward is to permanently sunset the game and close the studio. I want to thank all of Firewalk for their craftsmanship, creative spirit, and dedication. The PvP first-person shooter genre is a competitive space that's continuously evolving, and unfortunately, we did not hit our targets with this title. We will take the lessons learned from Concord and continue to advance our live service capabilities to deliver future growth in this area. You bumbling morons, the lesson you should take from this is to leave the area. No one wants another generic first-person hero shooter. Nobody is asking for that. No one wants more live service hero shooters, period. That's the lesson. You don't want to try and figure out how to compete in the hero shooter space because it's not a space anyone wants anything in anymore. It's oversaturated. It's dull, bland, lame. People are over it. Instead, put those resources towards something else. Anything else. Christ. Now, according to Bloomberg, this shutdown will affect 210 jobs, which is a lot. And I've said this from the very beginning. I don't blame the individual developers at Firewalk for the disaster that was Concord. I think the biggest issue was the leadership that was coming up with terrible ideas in a terrible direction and then putting the developers on the project. Concord should have never even been a project that got greenlit. That's something that should have went into the think tank and got laughed out of the fucking room and shut down with an iron fist, because it's a terrible idea from a conceptual standpoint, from a design standpoint, from everything standpoint. You know, even from a sitting point, everything in Concord was horrible on paper. It should have never even made it past the brain of whoever unfortunately was cursed with that idea. That should have been lobotomized out of there. It is just bad. And it's not like the employees at Firewalk have a say on what projects they get handed to work on. It's their job to do that. So that's what they were tasked with. And I don't think many of them are just going to stand up and say, enough is enough. I will not work on a garbage, generic, bland hero shooter. I'm going to go take my talents to Ubisoft and code some extra beads of sweat on the newest siege operator's nutsack. You won't see me again. Like, they have a job that is a competitive field, and they were tasked with making fucking Concord. which must have been an awful feeling for a lot of them, I imagine. I just don't personally blame each individual soul that worked on Concord for how boring, bad, bland, shitty the game was. I think all of its problems start from higher level positions that had all of that influence over the direction, the design, and all of that shit for the game, and then they task their employees with deliverables on it. I imagine a large number of people at Firewalk weren't exactly thrilled to be working on a project as uninspired and generic and bland as Concord. Pretty much anyone who has ever played a game in their life will probably not find anything to enjoy about Concord because it is just a worse version, like a bootleg version of every hero shooter that's ever come before it, but this time for $40 price tag instead of being free. Now, Firewalk themselves did give a little sign-off message saying Firewalk began with the idea of bringing the joy of multiplayer to a larger audience. Like, this isn't 2002 anymore. Like, I don't exactly know what they mean by that. Multiplayer games are the most popular games on the planet. Like, take, for example, Fortnite, which has been a cultural phenomenon for so many years now. It's not like multiplayer is this unheard of, obscure thing. I don't know what larger audience they thought they were going to attract with a generic $40 hero shooter. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, that just sounds like PR speak with absolutely nothing behind it. Just a hollow sentence with no real meaning. That's like a statement my grandmother would have made when she was talking about gaming, because she still just believed gaming was only like Pac-Man on an arcade cabinet. Like, I can't just not harp on this sentence. The joy of multiplayer to a larger audience. What in tarnation? It already has like the largest audience on the planet. The only thing more popular than multiplayer gaming is maybe like getting the common cold. Like, there are so few things that have reached this many people. I don't know what this statement is even trying to say. It's ridiculous. Along the way, we assembled an incredible team who are able to navigate growing a new startup into a team during a global pandemic. Firewalk was founded in 2018 and was very small for its first couple of years, only entering full production in 2022. Build a new, customized, next-generation FPS engine in Unreal 4 to 5, delivering top-tier gameplay, feel, beautiful worlds, and a performant 60 FPS technical experience on a stable and scalable backend on PS5 and PC to hundreds of thousands of players in our beta. I like how they threw in our beta, because everyone was about to call fucking baloney on that. That was about to be a Phoenix Wright objection moment right there. I don't know the player count during the beta, but it's not like the game was good then either, so I'm assuming everyone that played the beta, the hundreds of thousands, realized that this was not going to be worth time and money, and which is why it had such a fucking disastrous launch. I also don't know what top-tier gameplay feel they're talking about, because playing Concord felt like nails on a chalkboard because of how mind-numbingly boring and samey it was to every other game in the genre, except slowed down to a fucking crawl. It was a glacial speed. Everything set to like a 0.5 speed. It was miserable in terms of the speed of the game, so it was not a top-tier gameplay feel. Unless you like the feeling of walking around with poop in your shorts, because that's how every character controlled. Manage an acquisition, integration while readying technical and preliminary tests, and ultimately ship and deliver a great FPS experience to players, even if it launched much more narrowly than hoped against a heavily consolidated market. We took some risks along the way, marrying aspects of card battlers and fighting games with first-person shooters, and although some of these and other aspects of the IP didn't land as we hoped, the idea of putting new things into the world is critical to pushing the medium forward. The talent at Firewalk and the level of individual craft is truly world-class, and teams with Sony Interactive Entertainment and across the industry will be fortunate to work with them. Please reach out to recruiting at PlayStation for inquiries, and thank you to all the very many teams, partners, and fans who supported us along the way. That last little tidbit right there has the same energy of me standing up in front of my room right now and saying, thank you all for joining me here, everyone, for the Charles as the Optimal Height Club. And it's just me, like one fucking person. That's the thing with Concord, it just didn't have many fans. Not only did it not have many people that played it, but even of the people that played it, there just weren't many people that liked it. There were a few people that were desperately trying to convince themselves that they didn't waste money on it, that it wasn't that bad. That was the biggest praise I saw for the game during its 2-week lifespan, is that it wasn't horrible, like it was serviceable. And if that's the best compliment you can muster, there's clearly an issue. It just was a game that never should have saw the light of day in the first place. It was dead on arrival and doomed for failure out the gate because of a $40 price tag in an oversaturated genre that most people are already yawning at and don't want more of. So, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because we knew it was coming. It was a matter of time, and now that time is here. No more Concord, no more Firewalk. The rumors of Concord maybe coming back, I don't believe will ever happen unless Sony tries to turn it into like a joke or something. I think the last we'll see of Concord is going to be that episode in the upcoming Amazon Prime show, like Secret Levels or whatever it's called. And I think that might even just get pulled because of how embarrassing that would be to see that blemish once again take life in some form. But if it does come out, then I think that will be the final chapter of Concord. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. That's it. See ya. People wish for a lot of things. Immortality, to win the lottery, to get taller. But you know what no one would ever wish for? Is to bring Concord back from the dead. You could gather all the Dragon Balls an infinite number of times, you could rub every lamp on the planet, and neither the genie nor Shinron would ever receive a single wish to bring Concord back. Concord has to be one of the most pathetic failures humanity has ever come out with, up there with like Smell-O-Vision. It was a $40 dead on arrival, fart fucking shit sucking hero shooter that no one asked for and nobody played, and so Sony buried it 2 weeks later. It barely even had time to open its eyes after leaving the womb, and they realized that they were just going to eat a fat loss on it. But right now, there's like a glimmer of hope, and by hope I mean despair, because no one's hoping for Concord's return. But people have noticed that Concord is getting Steam updates. Even though it's been offline for over a month now, there has been almost daily updates to Concord on the back end. This has led many to speculate that maybe Concord might have some kind of return. Much like Jesus when he respawned, this could be Concord's, Phoenix moment rising from the ashes. But I truly hope not, because there is nothing that could save that game. It is an uninspired, unfun hero shooter for $40. Even if it was free, I don't think it would save it. It's still just a game that is worse than all of the alternatives out there, except this one also charged you $40 for the boredom. It'd be like paying $40 to have someone spit in your face. It's just, there's no value in Concord at any level. There's no need for another generic hero shooter. It doesn't do anything new. It doesn't have any reason for players to play it. So even if it does come back and it's free, I still think it falls right on its fucking face. This is something I mentioned when it was first announced that Sony would be banishing Concord to the Shadow Realm. I am surprised that they didn't at least try the desperate Hail Mary of going free-to-play before the funeral service. I really did think they would do that first because of how much money they clearly put into this project. So it's definitely possible that the idea here is to create a little buzz and do some kind of like Concord XL Magnum, Concord back with a vengeance type deal, and do like a marketing campaign, kind of like what Domino's did. You remember a while back, Domino's had this like almost humiliation campaign where they just kept shaming themselves like, we heard you, our pizza sucks. Yeah, our pizza's dog shit. Which is why when we listened to you, we wanted to make it change so that way you wouldn't be saying that anymore. So our pizza's not trash. We changed the formula. Our pizza's not bad anymore. It's good. Like that might be what they're trying here. Like, we heard players, so the game's free to play and we changed a lot of things to make it more fun, perhaps. That might be what they're going for because Concord's built up like an actual legacy of, I mean, it's an embarrassment, but everyone has heard the name Concord now. So I think what they might try is to bring it back and bank on kind of like Morbius, where they brought Morbius back, except that failed again. I imagine the same would happen with Concord. But the idea really could just be like, hey, we know this was a joke the first time around. We brought it back. This time it's free to play and we listen to feedback. But it's still going to suck shit. I think that's definitely possible, but I still find it unlikely that they're even going to bring it back in the first place. It is clear this is not a product anybody wants. And like I said, even if Concord does come back and it's free to play, even if every computer is built in with Concord pre-installed, I still just don't think anyone touches it. There's nothing in the game that's good. Like, even if you just wanted to play ranked, Like, let's say you wanted to be the top 5 Concord player out of all 10 players that play it. You will probably get bored before ever even getting to your 3rd game, because like all of the ideas in it don't work. Like the ranked, like the competitive mode is perhaps the worst in all of shooters, where it's round based, and if you win a round, whatever character you won that round with, you can't play again for the rest of the match. That's so stupid. So you can't even play the characters you want to play. You get one game with them, or one round with them, and if you win, they're gone. They're benched. The coach just subs them out for the rest of the game. It's stupid. There is nothing in Concord that is good. It's all just serviceable and generic. And nobody wants serviceable and generic when the alternatives are good and great. So what the fuck is the point in even bringing Concord back? Now, I did read that it is still unlikely they bring it back, considering the studio that worked on it is exploring other pitches right now to work on a different project entirely. So it seems like, at least internally, they're moving on from Concord. And I'll be honest, I am excited to see what they work on next, because it feels like this company might be cursed to just get like the worst projects under its belt. Like, first a $40 hero shooter that no one wanted, and I wonder what else they're going to get pitched on. Maybe like a Joker 2 musical movie tie-in game or something. Like, I am curious to see what else they produce going forward. Like, I believe there's probably a lot of talent on this team, but whoever the leadership is that's feeding them the idea to make like a hero shooter and shit, they need to be fired ASAP, because that is terrible direction. That is garbage. And I'm wondering if this is like a one-time thing where like this is their big blemish and now it's nothing but bangers going forward. But we'll see. Personally, I don't think they're trying to bring it back. I don't know what the updates on the back end are. Maybe it's like, you know, when like a house gets destroyed and you go on and start taking pictures for insurance. Maybe that's what they're doing on the back end. Like, hey, look at all of this. It's such a fucking tragedy. Look at this disaster of a game we made. Can we get some money back? Or something, you know? I couldn't tell you. But it would be so stupid to put more time, money, and resources into Concord to bring it back. They would just lose even more money than they already have. And they have to know that. They have to. Even if they bring it back and it's free to play, they still put more time and money into this game that nobody wants to play. So it just wouldn't make any level of sense to bring it back. It really wouldn't. I do think there is the smallest chance that that is the plan. I really think they might try and convince themselves that, you know, this delusional idea of, we listen to player feedback, so we brought Concord, and surely the gamers will come in. You know, like, maybe, like, I do think there's a chance that they are so out of touch that they think they can bring Concord back and use this whole disaster as marketing. Like, yeah, the first rodeo was bad, but round 2 is so much better, because we listen to all of you and we want to be more transparent about the development process and everything, so here's all of our substantial changes. But I still think it wouldn't do well. I just think there might be a chance they'd try that. I think it would still be really stupid if they did, though. Hopefully they're not bringing Concord back. That would be a waste of time. I don't know how many times we have to teach you this lesson, old man. Nobody wants another hero shooter that doesn't do anything new, and in fact, the new stuff it offers are just bad ideas, like with its competitive game mode, and the game also plays at like 1.5 times speed. Everyone is so abominably slow. There's just no one that is like scratching at their neck wanting Concord back. You're not going to find like a Concord super fan with some kind of like bubblegum tribute statue in their closet to whoever the main character was. I can't think of a single character's name in that game. There just doesn't exist a community that wants Concord. So don't bother losing more money trying to bring it back. Anyway, though, wanted to talk about it a little bit. That's it. See ya. Never mind, that's not about it. See ya. I just read another article going over this, and I completely forgot about this statement in the blog post. However, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. Therefore, at this time, we've decided to take the game offline beginning September 6th and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. That actually does sound like they're teasing some kind of return, somehow Concord return type moment. That sucks. So really, I'm starting to think that it might actually be trying to come back. I just don't see why. It's not like the experience resonated with anybody. There were some people that played Concord quite a bit just trying to farm to get the platinum trophy before it went offline. And I think they're misunderstanding that. I think they're thinking that players really liked it and all the people that were grinding for those hours for the platinum were fans of the game. They weren't. They just wanted the platinum trophy. They were trophy hunters. There wasn't really a community I saw that had any level of passion for this. There were people huffing copium that the game could get better over time. Clearly that didn't happen. They just pulled the life support off of it. But I never saw anyone respond positively to the game. I just saw people that were a little more forgiving of how boring it was. But no one that was like, this is the hero shooter. This is going to be my main bread and butter game now. I just had a voice crack by how absurd that idea is that Concord would be someone's main game. So I still think it's a terrible idea, but rereading that blog post, it does sound like they plan on bringing it back and that they're chalking up to a couple of things that missed the mark in a rocky, sloppy launch. It's just a sloppy, shitty product that nobody wants. And they just don't seem receptive to that. Okay, anyway though, that's about it. Hopefully no more Concord. See ya. Hello, and thank you for purchasing this audiobook reading of Grant Turner's Fortnite, the Ultimate Unauthorized Guide. You had a lot of options to choose from, such as Fortnite, the essential guide to the Battle Royale and other survival games, totally unauthorized. But you chose the Ultimate Unauthorized. So let's dive right in, gamers, shall we? And see what we can learn on how to be the cream supreme of online competitive blood sport that is Fortnite. Introduction. You've probably heard a lot about this video game called Fortnite Battle Royale, and you're wondering how to play. Or maybe you've played a few times with friends and want to amp up your game to become a contender. Whether you're totally new to Fortnite or been playing for several months, there's always something else to learn about. And with new features released weekly, keeping up is a challenge. Fortunately, you have this book in your hands, yes. Thank God, this is truly a godsend. It will guide you step by step from start to finish in installing, playing, and winning Fortnite. Granted, you won't win every time. Even professional players like Ninja, Myth, Dark, and Mooselk, Mucinex. I don't know who that fucking streamer is or gamer. Don't win all the time, but you can get better at acquiring resources and protecting yourself from elimination. With the strategies, tips, and tricks shared here, you can significantly boost your odds of staying alive longer and being well equipped for the final battle. Well, Grant, far be it from me to play the role of editor on your magnum opus here, but you missed an opportunity here. If I was writing the Fortnite Ultimate Unauthorized Omega Turbo Guide Arcade Edition XL XX Challenge Don't Tell Your Mom About It book, I would have doubled down on this introduction section. So, where you said luckily you have this book in your hands, that was good, but then I would have forayed into this guide will take you by the dick to the Victory Royale finish line. You will be popping champagne with the hottest bitches and slaying some of the finest punani vaginae in the world. I will get you to the lit savagery that is Fortnite Victory Royale status. You're welcome for writing this book, you fucking nerd. I would have gone that hard so that way people knew that they were getting value from this book. Especially for $2 off. I saved $2 by getting this at Walmart, Grant. Did you sign off on that? It's ridiculous. They've just fucking given this book away. It's like giving away the Bible. Unbelievable. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip the part where it talks about how popular Fortnite is because we all know. We've been born from Fortnite, born knowing about it. It's embedded in our DNA to understand Fortnite. It's one of like humans' primordial instincts now. So we'll start with getting started. Chapter 1. How to install Fortnite. It's imperative that we master this portion, because if we can't install Fortnite, we can't be getting the hard dubski roonies in the game. And that will not work in 2018. If you're not copping hard dubskis in Litville Fortnite, are you even existing? Who are you? So how to install? Do you want to get in on the new gaming craze that everyone is talking about? Your first step is getting your hands on Fortnite Battle Royale. Whether you have a PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or iPhone, here are the steps you need to follow to download the free game onto your preferred platform. We'll go ahead and start with PC. This is where the real elite gamers live. We basically fucking IV ourselves with G Fuel to keep our testosterone levels up and fueled through our Fortnite matches. I'm sure Grant will talk about the gamer IVs at some point in this book. It's only 500 pages, so it's kind of brief, and I don't think it's going to hit on every single topic, but I'm sure he'll cover at least the gaming enemas, if nothing else. If your intent is to play on your desktop or laptop computer, you first need to be connected to the internet. Downloading the game requires a connection. Next, open your web browser and go to epicgames.com. Well, excuse me, Grant. I mean, again, far be it for me to chime in like this unannounced and uninvited, but what exactly is the internet? For those of us that may not be the professional gamers, you really needed to break down the internet and downloading. Jesus, this is some futuristic shit. This is only for the real men out there. Once at the website, create an account by clicking the head-shaped icon at the top right. Jot down or print out all of the login details you use so you can gain access again. Oh, there's pictures as well. There's a lot of pictures in this book. I skimmed through it. I didn't mean to spoil it for myself. I wasn't trying to ruin the Harry Potter franchise by looking at the end of the guide early, but I did skim through to make sure that we were getting quality from this purchase. Make sure you choose Fortnite Battle Royale, which is free. Fortnite Save the World will cost you money. That it will, Grant. So he's advocating against paying for the game. I respect that. Fuck you, Epic Games, I guess, because we don't want your PvE game. All we want is your Battle Royale. That's what Grant's saying. His words, not mine. Once you have successfully registered an account at the Epic Games website, download the Epic Games launcher by clicking the yellow Get Epic Games button at the top right of the page. Then there is a standard YouTube clickbait arrow that is pointing to it. I understand me showing you this isn't doing you any favors in trying to understand what's being said on the page, which is why I'm reading it. Just letting you know that I understand you can't read the words when I show you the book like that, even though it's mainly a picture book anyway. I'm going to go ahead and skip the downloading though. Let's get the actual strategies here. I think all of us here on the World Wide Web, as it's called, understand how to download video games. Or porn or anything really. We understand downloading. You wouldn't download a car, but you would download Fortnite and porn. So Chapter 2. How the game is played. Be the last person alive in the game. That's your goal in Fortnite Battle Royale. You start with 100 solo players, or 50 teams of 2, or 25 squads of 4. The math is impeccable. The arithmetic was spot on. Who all land on the island simultaneously. Then it's a fight to the death as all the players work to protect themselves and gather resources that will keep them alive longer in the game. Staying alive is the first priority of the game. You know what? I think I understand the rules, Grant. I'm going to skip to where you give me strategies. So it's not going to be... It doesn't look like Chapter 2 strategies. It's still explaining what loot is and what the E button on your keyboard does, what left and right click are. It's also telling you how to use your eyes. Here's a whole 2 paragraphs. How do I know how many players are left in my game? Grant, I'm going to go ahead and summarize these 2 paragraphs. You use your eyes. Yeah, you play with your eyes open. Innovative stuff, really. Where do we get to the actual strategies, though? When did that start? Different modes of play. Okay, telling us the game types. Epic Games also tells us the game types as well. Pretty unnecessary. Chest locations. Now, this section could be very interesting and helpful. If they're able to tell you exactly what chest is going to spawn under what circumstances, that would be very impressive. I'm very interested to know how they crack the code of the chest randomization. Although it's not really random since there's specific spots they're going to spawn. Let's see how they cover it. Chests move from game to game. However, there's a finite number of possible locations where a chest may be. With the help of Jeremy Padron, aka Squatting Dog, we have created maps of the possible locations where chests can appear in the most popular areas of the game. Well, of course, world-renowned chest treasure epidemiologist and scientist Squatting Dog. They were able to crack the code and just kind of give us little rough markers of where they spawn. That could be kind of useful. I could absolutely see that being useful to a newcomer. But when you're a seasoned veteran like me who lives, breathes, sleeps, and fucks Fortnite, rinse and repeat, I don't really need that section. So let's go ahead and skip around a little bit more and find some tips and tricks. Game mechanics, I've already mastered that section, so we'll skip through there as well. Jesus Christ, I'm 98 pages into this book, and there's still no tricks, tips, or anything to help you get better. It's still just explaining everything. Everything so far in this book is something you'd find in the help menu of the game. If you Googled how to play Fortnite or what is Fortnite, you would find every single bit of information in this book on a single page on a website. Holy shit. I mean, not to say it's a bad book, Grant Turner, more like Page Turner, because this book is amazing, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I've skipped ahead a little bit more. We're at page 108 now, and this actually seems useful. How to use building to win every battle, so you got some clickbait shit in here now. One of Fortnite's unique features is the building mechanic. I'm sure he's already talked about that. I don't know why he's repeating it. The ability to build structures on the fly for protection and visibility. Okay, assuming you're the attacking player, the first thing you should always do to maximize the chance of winning a battle is to build ramps, assuming you have resources available. Your opponent may then build ramps as well. In that case, instead of just building 1 or 2 of your own, either keep building up or shoot at the bottom of the ramp of the person attacking you. Shooting at the base of any structure will cause the entire structure to collapse. Once you have the advantage, peek over the top of your cover and tap fire your assault rifle until any other opponents nearby are eliminated. Once the battle is over, take a moment to build a square fort around yourself with walls and use whatever bandages, medical kits, or shield potions you were carrying to regain any health you've lost. So that's how I win every time. I build a ramp and I win. I shoot them. Build a ramp and I shoot them. Alright, I'll go ahead and give that a try. That's really breaking the meta. I don't often see that strategy employed. You know, let's just, well, Chapter 9 is all about the Battle Pass. Really, now we're covering everything. I'm sure there's also going to be like a Chapter 10, the lore behind the skins. Who is Thanos? What was the Thanos event? All things considered, is the Battle Pass worth getting? I'm going to go ahead and summarize all of this and say no. Is there anything of any value here? Talks about V-Bucks, goes over the skins and the back bling, of course, harvesting tools. You get all the aesthetics in here. It's truly the ultimate unauthorized guide. Gliders, loading screens. Ooh, this is interesting. Loading screens. Loading screens are relatively new as of Season 3 and are only available by passing through Battle Pass tiers. That about covers that, I guess. Chapter 11. 140 pages in, we get some tips and tricks. Basic tips and tricks. Always have building materials. Well then, I guess that just about covers the basic tips and tricks then, huh? Alright, well, I think with everything we've learned from the ultimate unauthorized guide, we too can ascend to the godhood that Ninja has achieved and be the next one to really just take the whole scene by storm. Thank you, Ultimate Unauthorized Guide, and thank you to all the other Fortnite guides from Walmart that I've been collecting. Can't wait to get my dick into this one and really dive in there and see what this has to offer. This one's totally unauthorized. It's illegal. Me having this right here, they're probably going to throw me in the fucking slammer. This shit is unauthorized, unchained, and uncircumcised. I'm going to read that shit. This is like peeking into Pandora's box. I can only imagine what kind of secrets this one will hold. I'm excited for that. But for now, I'm going to employ everything we learned from the last book and do nothing but catch hard dub skis out there. Take it easy, everyone. See ya.